here to announce a significant law enforcement action regarding North Carolina's Public Facilities Privacy and Security Act. But this action is about a great deal more than bathrooms. This is about the dignity and the respect that we accord our fellow citizens and the laws that we as a people and as a country have enacted to protect them. This is not the first time that we have seen discriminatory responses to historic moments of progress for our nation. We saw it in the Jim Crow laws that followed the Emancipation Proclamation. We saw it in the fierce and widespread resistance to Brown v. Board of Education. And we saw it in the proliferation of state bans on same-sex unions that were intended to stifle any hope that gay and lesbian Americans might one day be afforded the right to marry.
That is Attorney General Loretta Lynch announcing the federal government's lawsuit against North Carolina just last week. Now, this past Friday, the Obama administration also announced a new directive. The New York Times called it a decree, like he was a monarch. That directive, that every public school in America provide transgender bathroom access or they lose federal funds. I know. Welcome to the program, folks. I'm Dana Lash, and you can live tweet us your thoughts during today's broadcast using the hashtag DailyDana. Now, the Obama administration is taking a very bold step forward, and conservatives are fighting back. Remember, the bathroom is a variable. It's just one variable. And if you think that this is all about restrooms or fitting rooms or locker rooms, well, you're wrong. This is all about forced acceptance, yet somehow the president continues to make this and to classify it as a social issue. Here he is in an interview with BuzzFeed just earlier today talking about protecting our children.
We're talking about kids, and anybody who's been in school, been in high school, who's been a parent, I think should realize that kids who are sometimes in the minority, kids who have a different sexual orientation or are transgender are subject to a lot of bullying potentially. They are vulnerable, and I think that it is part of our obligation as a society to make sure that everybody is treated fairly and our kids are all loved and that they're protected and that their dignity is affirmed.
What about the kids who feel uncomfortable at having to share their restrooms with a member of the opposite sex? I mean, we all like science, right? I love science. I'm not a flat earther. But what gets me is how you have, say, just a man who pretends to be a woman. You'll have an individual who doesn't want to use the male restroom because they say it's uncomfortable for them. They're afraid of being bullied, or they just don't like it. That for whatever reason, it's their comfort that's paramount. And so they want to use the women's, the female, the girls' restroom. And those girls say that they're uncomfortable, the exact same reason that they don't want that man to use their restroom, but yet somehow they're not accommodated, and their feelings really, their cares, their concerns aren't even considered in any of this. And now, remember how I said this was one variable? This isn't about bathrooms, it's not about fitting rooms, it's not about locker rooms. It's one variable, and it extends way beyond that. Now the federal government is trying to force the military to do the same. Now, the Pentagon has been accused of moving slowly in terms of integrating transgender people into the military. Men who are pretending to be women, or women who are pretending to be men, who want to be recognized in the military as a man. Now, that's really going to have an effect in the military, especially if you have, for instance, a female who wants to be a man, claims that she identifies as a man, wants to go out in a combat role as a man. You know, at some point, science and anatomy and physiology and even temperament also play into this. It's all science, folks, right? I mean, we're not science deniers, correct? Joining me now is Dr. Everett Piper, president at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. He's also the author of Why I'm a Liberal and Other Conservative Ideas. Interesting title. He has been very vocal about his views on this issue. Dr. Piper, thank you for joining us. You know, this goes, and I've said this so many times, this isn't just about one particular issue, about a locker room or about who's using what bathroom, or even really with the latest development about the military. All of these issues are variable, and at some point it's all going to affect everyone. I mean, now we're talking about using the military as a social experiment.
You know, Dana, really what this is about is it's about the dignity of the woman. How in the world can we claim that this is anything but blatant misogyny, to dumb down the definition of a woman, to dumb down the definition of a female to nothing but a fantasy and nothing but a fabrication and nothing but a feeling? As you've said, we believe in science, in biology and physiology and anatomy. And if under the auspices of Title IX, a law that I'm required to comply with, if I want you and your kids to be able to use your Pell Grant to pay the bill at Oklahoma Wesleyan, I'm now being told that under the auspices of a law that was established to give you equal access to the athletic field, that I now have to deny your existence and to give that access to somebody else who pretends to be a woman. This is nonsense. It makes no sense. It's anti-science. It's anti-female. It is misogyny.
And an issue of forced acceptance. Yeah, the idea that they would pull federal funding from any learning institution that receives federal funds, they're holding the parents hostage here too, because none of the parents, none of their concerns, none of their feedback was incorporated into this directive from the Obama administration. And they're saying, well, we forcibly take money from you to help fund these public institutions, and your money goes towards this, but we're going to withhold it from you unless you get into our line of thinking here.
It's ideological fascism. You shall submit. You shall agree. And if you don't, we will silence you and we will expel you. What used to be academic freedom in the academy, where we exchanged ideas robustly, and we were classically liberal because we realized that liberty was finally had at the foot of the cross. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. There is no liberty outside the context of natural law. We've abandoned that, and as Isaiah 5 tells us, we've called good evil and evil good, and black white and white black, and bitter sweet and sweet bitter, and male female and female male. And reversing these definitions has resulted in this tyranny, this ideological tyranny that's being foisted upon us by the government, by Big Brother. We cannot start equating Jim Crow laws with volitional behavioral choices of a guy wearing a girl costume. That is not an immutable characteristic. He can choose not to do that, and he has no right to insult your dignity by suggesting that that costume makes him female.
You made a great point, too, as well, in discussing how this is really, it's very misogynist. I mean, it boils the idea that a woman is nothing more than lipstick, than a dress, than some hairspray, and that's pretty much it, some physical attributes, and that's it. And that's all a woman, that's all a female is. Where are the feminists on this? This is their turf here.
You're spot on. If the women would speak up and say, wait a second, I'm a fact, I'm not a feeling. I'm a reality, I'm not a construct. And you cannot take my bathroom away. You cannot take my toilet away. You cannot take my privacy and my dignity away by suggesting that if someone just wants to pretend that they're equal to me, they are not. By dumbing down the definition of the woman to nothing but a fabrication, it's the ultimate insult to the female. And you're right. Feminists should be rising up and saying that it is ludicrous to deny the female while still claiming to be a feminist.
Yeah, I read an article the other day, I want to say it was either the New York Post or New York Daily News, something to that effect, where they were talking to students, high school students, about the issue of transgenderism. And there's a boy at one particular school who is pretending to be a female. And nothing surgical has been done. It's all just outward appearance and what they think a woman acts like. And the article was making targets out of the boys who had said, well, we don't want to date someone who is transgender. I mean, go figure. They're teenage boys. They like girls. It's a shocker, I know.
Well, here's another analogy. Let's assume that all of a sudden I started identifying as a double amputee. Does that mean that I should have my arms cut off? And should a doctor assist me in doing so? And should culture champion that and celebrate the fact that I now identify as a double amputee? I am no more a double amputee than I am Yul Brynner. I mean, denying the fact that I have hair does not make me Yul Brynner, no more than denying my arms makes me an amputee. These are delusions They are not things to celebrate.
Right.
These are things that need to be confronted and counseled. They don't need to be created as the norm within culture that takes away the dignity of the whole person, of the woman, and of the individual who is a scientific reality.
And you make a great point as well. I mean, where do you draw the line? If anybody can identify, what if I decide, and I play around with this on my radio program, but seriously, what if I decide one day I want to identify as a doctor? So unless the OR lets me in of my local hospital to operate on someone, it's pretty discriminatory.
And we've seen it. We've seen women who have had plastic surgery because they now identify as cats. There's a gentleman in California who's now identifying as a dragon, and he's had horns implanted on his head. His teeth have been modified. His nose has been shortened, and his ears have been removed, and he's had scales tattooed on his body because he believes he's a dragon. These are not things to laugh at. These are things to feel sad about, and these are people that need care. They need counsel. They shouldn't be celebrated because of the delusional fantasies that they have that make them mutilate their bodies. The human being is an ontological fact. The female is an ontological fact. It shouldn't be amputated or mutilated, and it can't just be changed by whims and by wishful thinking.
And what puzzles me so much about all of this, Dr. Piper, is particularly the argument that propels this movement towards transgenderism, that, oh, we have to break down gender barriers. And we've had the stories of different retail stores that do away with the boys and girls sign in blue and pink colors. But then at the same time, when you see parents react to this issue and they feel as though, well, our kids might be transgender, it's because the boy doesn't do things that they view typically boy, or the girl doesn't do things typically girl. They use those same measurements that they disregard in later years. If the boy likes the color pink, it's not maybe because he likes the color pink. It's, oh, well, he must want to be a girl. And they encourage it.
So they're acknowledging, as you've just pointed out, they've acknowledged the very distinctions that they're trying to deny.
Right.
It's self-refuting. It's sawing off the very branch upon which they sit. They're trying to deny the female while acknowledging female characteristics that they're then going to celebrate in the male. They're reversing definitions. They're calling good evil, evil good, male female, female male, and then they're coming to me and they're saying that you've got to give women equal access to the athletic field. In the same breath, they're saying, but you have to deny the existence of the woman. This makes no sense. We can't have a culture that's built upon nonsense. You have to have a culture that's built upon common sense, common law, natural law, and revelation. And those are the only contexts that's ever been proven to provide freedom for the human race.
And the scary thing is, lastly, Dr. Piper, the scary thing about this is that I've always viewed this as a mental health issue, but it seems as though society refuses to classify it as such, which then, of course, speaks to all of the people who have a mental health issue with this particular situation, and they're not going to go and seek help, and there's not going to be really any help advised for it. It's going to be, well, go ahead and just change genders.
And it's cruel because we should be helping, not celebrating illness. G.K. Chesterton said, when you get rid of the big laws of God, you don't get liberty. You get thousands and thousands of little laws that rush in to fill the vacuum. We've gotten rid of the 10 simple big laws, the common sense of our existence, and we see thousands and thousands of little laws that are rushing in to replace them, that are being imposed by the government, by the Department of Justice, by the Department of Education, by the Department of Civil Rights, everyone trying to fill the vacuum that's been vacated by stepping away from those 10 simple laws.
Absolutely. Dr. Everett Piper, good to have you. Thanks so much for joining me today.